The space battle was over. Commander Veltar watched his ships run away from the enemy. His crystal skin glowed dim blue with sadness. Another defeat. Another world lost to the Korthic Empire. The bridge of his ship was quiet. Too quiet. His crew moved slowly, like they had given up hope. Veltar looked at the damage reports on his screen. 3 more ships destroyed. Hundreds of good soldiers dead. The Alfenian commander closed his eyes and tried not to think about it. "Sir, we have reached the Kepler system," said his navigation officer. Her voice was soft and tired. "Good. Send word to all ships. We will meet at the 3rd planet's moon." Veltar stood up from his command chair. His tall crystal body made small ringing sounds as he moved. "Call the Alliance Council. We need to talk." 2 hours later, the leaders of the 7 Alliance species sat around a large table. The meeting room was on the biggest ship in their fleet, the Harmony's Edge. But there was no harmony here. Only fear and anger. Ambassador Zinn spoke first. The plant-like Vergani leader's leaves shook as she talked. "My homeworld is gone," she said. "The Korthic burned our great forests. Millions of my people are dead." Green tears fell from her large eyes. Admiral Thorn splashed in his water tank. The fish-like nebulae was angry. "My bioships are dying faster than we can grow new ones. The Korthak weapons poison our living vessels. We cannot keep fighting like this." "Click, click, whir," said the Klaxon representative. The insect-like warrior's words came through a translator device. "Our warrior caste is almost extinct. The best fighters of my species have fallen in battle. We have no more soldiers to send." Veltar listened to each leader tell the same story. Defeat after defeat. Worlds burned. People killed. The Alliance was dying, and everyone knew it. "How many ships do we have left?" asked Veltar. 237 combat vessels," answered Admiral Thorn. "The Korthic have over 2,000. "How many worlds have we lost this month?" 12, said Ambassador Zinn sadly. Veltar sat down hard in his chair. The Alliance had started this war with over 500 worlds. Now they had less than 100 left. The math was simple and terrible. "We cannot win," said the Klaxon representative. "Click, whir, click. The Korthic are too strong, too many, too cruel. And what do we do?" asked Admiral Thorn. "Do we surrender? Do we watch them kill everyone we care about?" The room became very quiet. Nobody wanted to say it, but everyone was thinking the same thing. Maybe surrender was the only choice left. Suddenly, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. The lights on the bridge turned red. Veltar jumped up. "What is happening?" A young officer ran into the room. "Sir? Unknown ships coming out of hyperspace. They are not Korthic." Veltar and the other leaders rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see strange ships appearing from the dark of space. The ships looked different from anything they had seen before. They were small and dark, with sharp edges and weapons everywhere. "Are they more enemies?" asked Ambassador Zinn. "Unknown, sir," said the sensor officer. "They are sending a message." "Put it on screen," ordered Veltar. The screen changed. A strange creature appeared. It had only 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 head. Its skin was brown, and it had short, dark hair. This was something new. "Greetings," the creature said. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Defiant. We come from a planet called Earth. We have been watching your war with the Korthic Empire." The Alliance leaders looked at each other in surprise. Earth? They had never heard of this planet. "We know you are losing," continued Captain Morrison. "We want to help." Admiral Thorn made a bubbling sound of disbelief. "Help? You? Your ships are tiny. Your technology looks ancient." Captain Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. Size is not everything, Admiral. Sometimes the smallest creatures are the most dangerous. What could you possibly do against the Korthek Empire? Asked Veltar. They have destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than you appear to be. Because those civilizations fought like you do, said Morrison, with honor, with rules, with mercy. His smile grew wider and more frightening. We humans do not fight like that. Ambassador Zin's leaves rustled with confusion. How do you fight? We fight to win, Morrison said simply. No matter what it takes, no matter how ugly it gets. We fight until our enemies are dead or broken. The Alliance leaders felt uncomfortable. This human's words were harsh and violent. They did not sound civilized. Your species sounds barbaric, said the Klaxon representative through his translator. Yes, agreed Morrison. We are. And that is exactly what you need right now. Veltar studied the human's face on the screen. There was something in those small eyes that made him feel cold. Something that spoke of violence and death and terrible knowledge. What do you want in return for your help? Asked Veltar. Nothing, said Morrison. We just want to see the Korthek Empire burn. The bridge became very quiet. The Alliance leaders had fought for 3 years trying to stop the Korthek Empire. They had lost almost everything. And now these strange creatures from an unknown world were offering to help for free. Why? Asked Ambassador Zin. Why do you care what happens to us? Morrison's smile disappeared. His face became hard and serious. Because bullies need to be stopped. Because strong creatures who hurt weak ones deserve to die. Because sometimes the galaxy needs monsters to fight monsters. Veltar felt a chill run through his crystal body. He had spent his whole life trying to be civilized, trying to be good, trying to follow the rules of war that kept conflicts from becoming too terrible. But those rules had not saved his people. Those rules had not stopped the Korthek from burning worlds. Maybe it was time to try something different. Maybe it was time to be less civilized. Permission to come aboard, requested Captain Morrison. Veltar looked around at the other alliance. Leaders. He saw the same desperate hope in their eyes that he felt in his crystal heart. They were dying. Their people were dying. Maybe these violent humans could teach them something that would make a difference. Permission granted, said Veltar. Docking Bay 7. As the screen went dark, Admiral Thorne whispered, What have we done? Veltar watched the human ships move closer to his fleet. Soon, everything would change. He just hoped they would still recognize themselves when it was over. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the docking bay doors. 2 other humans followed him. Lieutenant Amy Foster was a small woman with red hair and sharp green eyes. Sergeant Rick Palmer was a big man with scars on his face and hands that looked like they had seen many fights. The Alliance welcoming party waited for them. Commander Veltar stood 7 feet tall, his crystal body catching the light like a living diamond. Next to him was Admiral Thorne in a special water suit that let him breathe outside his tank. Ambassador Zin's plant-like body swayed gently as her roots moved inside their portable soil container. Welcome aboard the Harmony's Edge, said Veltar. His voice made soft chiming sounds when he spoke. Jake looked around at the beautiful ship. Everything was smooth and curved. The walls glowed with soft light. It looked like art, not a warship. Pretty, he said. No wonder you are losing. The Alliance officers looked confused and offended. Admiral Thorne's gills fluttered with anger. This ship has the most advanced shields and weapons in the galaxy. And it looks like a temple, not a tool of war, said Sergeant Palmer. He ran his rough hand along the smooth wall. Where are your armor plates? Your backup systems? Your emergency? Bunkers? We do not need such things, said Veltar proudly. Our technology is far superior to primitive armor. Lieutenant Foster pulled out a small device and began scanning the walls. She frowned at the readings. One good hit in the right spot, and this whole section would be open to space. Impossible, said Admiral Thorne. Our shields would never allow such damage. Amy looked at Jake and Rick. All three humans had the same expression. It was the look adults gave to children who did not understand how dangerous the world really was. Show us your war room, said Jake. They walked through. Halls filled with beautiful art and peaceful music. Jake saw crew members from different species working together happily. Everyone looked clean and well-fed and safe. It made him sad to know what was coming for these people. The war room was a large space with holographic displays showing star maps and battle formations. Dozens of officers worked at stations covered with blinking lights and glowing screens. Impressive, said Amy, but her voice did not sound impressed. Veltar activated the main display. It showed the current position of all Alliance and Corthic forces. The red dots representing enemy ships far outnumbered the blue dots of Alliance vessels. Here's our situation, said Veltar. The Corthic Empire controls most of this sector. We have been pushing them back where we can, but they are too strong. Jake studied the display for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had found something very stupid and very sad. What is so funny? Asked Admiral Thorne angrily. You are not trying to win, said Jake. You are trying to look good while you lose. What do you mean? Asked Veltar. Rick Palmer pointed at the display. Look at these battle formations. Everything is neat and organized. You fight like you are dancing, not killing. Amy pulled out her portable computer and connected it to the Alliance system. May I show you something? Veltar nodded. The main display changed to show images from Earth. Terrible images of war and destruction and death. Cities burning. Soldiers fighting in mud and blood. Weapons that could kill millions of people at once. This is how humans fight war, said Amy quietly. We do not dance. We do not follow rules. We kill the enemy until they cannot fight anymore. Ambassador Zin's leaves. Turned pale with shock. This is horrible. How can you do such things to your own species? Because we learned long ago that war is not a game, said Jake. War is about making the other side stop fighting. Everything else is just pretending to be civilized while people die. Veltar looked uncomfortable, but there are rules of war. Treaties that civilized species follow. We do not attack civilian targets. We do not torture prisoners. We allow enemies to retreat when they are beaten. And where has that gotten you? Asked Rick. How many of your civilians has the Corthic Empire killed while you were being honorable? The room became very quiet. Everyone knew the answer. Billions of Alliance civilians had died while their military followed the rules of civilized warfare. The Corthic Empire does not follow your rules, continued Jake. They kill everyone they can. They destroy everything they touch. But you keep fighting them like they are going to be fair and honorable. Amy brought up tactical data on the screen. Show us your last 3 battles. For the next hour, the humans studied every detail of Alliance military strategy. They asked hard questions and took careful notes. The Alliance officers tried to explain their tactics, but the humans kept shaking their heads. You telegraph every attack, said Rick. Your formations are too predictable. You retreat when you should advance. You advance when you should retreat. You fight like you are trying not to hurt anyone, added Amy. But the enemy is trying to hurt everyone. Jake stood up and walked to the center of the room. We want to try something. A small mission to test our ideas. What kind of mission? Asked Veltar carefully. There is a Corthic supply convoy moving through the Deneb system tomorrow. 3 cargo ships with fighter escort. Your intelligence shows they are carrying weapons and food to the front lines. Admiral Thorne nodded. We have been watching it. But it is too well defended for a direct attack. Jake smiled that predator smile again. Who said anything about a direct attack? Amy brought up a new tactical display. What if we do not attack the convoy at all? What if we attack something else? The display showed the convoy's route through the Deneb system, but Amy highlighted different targets. A communication relay, a fuel depot, a repair station. Hit these targets first, explained Rick. Make them think we are attacking their infrastructure. When they send ships to investigate, the convoy will be alone. Then we hit them from behind, continued Amy. Fast attack, maximum damage, no. Prisoners? No prisoners? Asked Ambassador Zinn in shock. But that is against the rules of war. Jake turned to look at her. His eyes were very cold. The Korthic Empire took no prisoners when they burned your homeworld. Why should we take theirs? Veltar's crystal skin dimmed with thought. Everything the humans suggested went against Alliance military tradition, but Alliance military tradition was losing the war. If we do this, he said slowly, we become like them. No, said Jake firmly. We become like us, and us is what wins. Wars. Admiral Thorne made bubbling sounds of consideration. A plan could work, but it would be a violation of 17 different Alliance military codes. How many codes will be left when the Korthic Empire finishes killing everyone? Asked Rick. The Alliance officers looked at each other. They had spent years following codes and rules and traditions, and they had spent years watching their friends die and their worlds burn. We will need volunteers, said Veltar finally. Not everyone will be comfortable with these tactics. Start with your angriest warriors, suggested Amy, the ones who have lost the most. They will understand what needs to be done. Jake walked to the viewing port and looked out at the Alliance fleet. Small, beautiful ships filled with good people who were losing a war because they refused to be as brutal as their enemies. War is not about being good, he said without turning around. War is about being alive when it is over. Everything else is luxury you cannot afford. Behind him, he could hear the Alliance officers making difficult decisions. Soon, they would learn what humans had known for thousands of years. Sometimes, to save civilization, you had to be willing to abandon it. The mission had worked perfectly. Too perfectly. 3 Korthic supply ships were now floating metal graves in the Deneb system. Not one Alliance ship had been damaged. Not one Alliance soldier had died. The convoy escorts never knew what hit them. Word spread through the Alliance fleet like wildfire. The humans had shown them something impossible. They had shown them how to win. Captain Lisa Carter arrived the next day with reinforcements from Earth. Her destroyer, the Vengeance, looked like a weapon built for killing. Black metal, sharp edges, and gun turrets pointing in every direction. Following her ship came transport vessels filled with more human soldiers. 50 of our best, Jake told Commander Veltar as they watched the new arrivals dock. Each one an expert in warfare. Colonel Dan Brooks was the first one off the transport. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind him came specialists in every type of combat humans had invented over 10,000. Years of killing each other. Time to teach your people how to really fight, said Brooks. The training began immediately. Captain Tony Rodriguez gathered a group of Verdani warriors in the ship's largest cargo bay. The plant-like soldiers stood in neat rows, waiting politely for instruction. Forget everything you know about formation fighting, Rodriguez told them. He activated a holographic city street filled with buildings and cover. War is not about standing in lines and shooting at each other. War is about staying alive while making sure the enemy does not. He demonstrated urban combat tactics, how to move from cover to cover, how to set ambushes, how to make the enemy come to you instead of attacking where they were strong. The Verdani warriors looked confused. "This seems dishonest," said one of them. "Should we not face our enemies with courage?" Rodriguez stopped the demonstration. He had heard this question from every Alliance species. Courage does not make you bulletproof. Smart tactics keep you alive to be courageous another day. In another part of the ship, Major Beth Williams was teaching Althenian pilots how to break their own rules. The crystal beings had been trained to fly in perfect formations, never deviating from flight plans, always maintaining proper distances from other ships. "Your formations are beautiful," Williams told them. "They are also predictable. Watch this." She showed them recordings of human fighter battles, pilots breaking formation to confuse enemies, ships diving and climbing in chaotic patterns that made no sense to anyone except the pilots themselves. "This looks like madness," said an Althenian pilot. Her crystal body chimed with distress. "Madness that wins battles," said Williams. "Your enemy expects you to be organized. When you are chaotic, they cannot predict what you will do." The most difficult students were the Klaxon warriors. Despite their reputation as fierce fighters, they had rigid ideas about honor in combat. Captain Steve Johnson tried to explain human military thinking to a group of insect soldiers. "You fight to prove you are brave," Johnson told them. "We fight to make sure the enemy stops fighting. Those are two very different goals." "Click whir, click buzz," said the lead Klaxon warrior. The translator spoke in a mechanical voice. "A warrior who runs from battle is not a warrior. A warrior who dies in a stupid battle cannot protect his people," Johnson replied. "Sometimes running away is the smartest thing you can do." He showed them battle recordings from Earth history, armies that retreated to draw enemies into traps, soldiers who pretended to be defeated to make enemies careless, victories won through deception and patience instead of direct confrontation. Klaxon warriors were shocked. Everything they had been taught about honorable combat was being turned upside down. Sergeant Paul Martinez worked with a mixed group of Alliance soldiers, teaching them the human concept of acceptable losses. This was the hardest lesson of all. "Sometimes people die so that more people can live," Martinez explained. "Sometimes you have to sacrifice a few to save many." A young Nebulae officer raised a fin in question. "But how do we choose who lives? And who dies?" "You choose based on what gives you the best chance of winning," Martinez answered. "Not based on who is your friend, or who is brave, or who deserves to live. You choose based on cold mathematics." The Alliance soldiers looked sick. This was not how they thought about war. War was supposed to be about protecting everyone, not choosing who to sacrifice. "I know this sounds cruel," said Martinez gently, "but the Korthic Empire has been making these choices for you. They choose to kill everyone they can. At least this way, you get to choose who lives." The real test came 3 days later. Alliance forces, now trained in basic human tactics, engaged a Korthic patrol in the Ross system. Instead of the usual organized battle with clear formations and predictable movements, the Alliance ships struck from multiple directions using hit-and-run tactics. The Korthic patrol was destroyed completely. Not one enemy ship escaped. Not one. Survivor was left to report back to the Empire. Admiral Thorne reviewed the battle recordings with amazement. "We did not fight like Alliance forces. We fought like something else entirely." "You fought like humans," said Jake Morrison with satisfaction. "And humans know how to win." But not everyone was happy with the changes. Ambassador Zinn called a meeting of the Alliance Council. Her plant-like face showed deep concern. "We are becoming something we swore we would never become," she said. "We are becoming as brutal as the Korthic Empire." "Are we?" asked Veltar. Or are we finally becoming effective? The enemy killed billions of our people, added Admiral Thorne. How many more should we let them kill while we maintain our moral superiority? Colonel Brooks attended the meeting as an observer. He listened to the Alliance leaders argue about ethics and honor and the proper way to conduct war. You want to know the difference between you and the Korthic Empire? He finally said. You are arguing about whether these tactics are right or wrong. They never ask that question. They just kill. Ambassador Zine's leaves rustled with frustration. But if we abandon our principles, what are we fighting to protect? Your people, Brooks answered simply. Dead martyrs do not get to keep their principles. Living survivors do. The argument continued for hours, but the results spoke for themselves. Alliance forces were winning battles for the first time in months. Fewer Alliance soldiers were dying. Korthic advances had stopped. Jake Morrison stood at the bridge at the Harmony's edge, watching Alliance ships practice new attack formations. They moved like predators, now instead of dancers. Fast, efficient, deadly. Your species has changed us, Veltar said, joining him at the observation window. We did not change you, Jake replied. We just showed you what you needed to do to survive. Is this what we will become? Creatures of violence and calculation? Jake considered the question carefully. You will become whatever you need to become to protect the things you care about. That is what survival means. On the display screens around the bridge, reports came in of successful Alliance operations throughout the sector. Supply lines cut. Communication stations destroyed. Korthic forces retreating in confusion. The war was changing. The Alliance was learning to fight like humans. And humans had been perfecting the art of war for 10,000 years. The Korthic Empire was about to discover what happened when prey learned to hunt back. 3 months after the humans arrived, the Korthic Empire began to notice something was wrong. Their easy conquest had become a nightmare. Admiral Karen Davis brought the human battleship Liberty to join the growing fleet. More human officers arrived with new ideas about warfare that the Alliance had never imagined. The combined human Alliance forces now numbered over 400 ships. In the command center of the Liberty, Colonel Matt Turner studied intelligence reports about Korthic shipyards. The enemy was building new vessels faster than ever, trying to replace losses that should not have existed. They are scared, Turner told the assembled Alliance commanders. For the first time in this war, the Korthic Empire is afraid. Commander Veltar looked at the tactical displays showing Korthic positions. Their fleet movements have become defensive. They are no longer attacking our remaining worlds. Because they cannot predict what we will do next, explained Lieutenant Commander Sarah Bell. She was a small woman with dark hair and the cold eyes of someone who understood strategy. We have broken their ability to plan. The next operation would test how far the Alliance had come. A major Korthic shipyard in the Vega system was producing new battleships every week. Traditional Alliance tactics would have called for a direct fleet assault, ship against ship, honorable combat that would cost thousands of lives. The humans had a different idea. We do not attack the shipyard, Bell explained to the mixed group of human and alien officers. We attack everything the shipyard needs to function. The plan was simple and terrible. Strike teams would hit the power stations that supplied energy to the shipyard. Other teams would destroy the supply convoys bringing raw materials. Still others would target the communication networks that coordinated the construction work. And then, asked Admiral Thorne. Then we attack the civilian contractors who work at the shipyard, said Captain Ray Clark, the human intelligence officer. We make them too afraid to come to work. The Alliance officers went very quiet. This was targeting non-combatants. Everything they had been taught said this was wrong. Our civilians are building warships that kill our people, Clark continued. They are part of the war machine. They are legitimate targets. Ambassador Zine's leaves turned dark with distress. We cannot attack civilians. That makes us no better than the Korthic Empire. Major Chris Anderson pulled up images on the main screen. Earned Alliance worlds. Dead cities. Destroyed hospitals and schools. These are the civilians the Korthic Empire has killed. Millions of them. The images were hard to look at. Children's. Bodies in the ruins of schools. Hospitals bombed while treating wounded. Entire families killed for the crime of being born on Alliance worlds. The enemy does not distinguish between soldiers and civilians, Henderson said quietly. Why should we give them protection they do not give us? Colonel Turner took control of the briefing. We are not going to kill civilians. We are going to make them not want to help the Korthic war effort. Psychological warfare. He explained the plan. Human specialists would broadcast messages to the shipyard workers. Messages showing what happened to Korthic facilities that the Alliance attacked. Messages explaining that anyone who helped build warships was helping to kill Alliance civilians. Fear is a weapon, Turner said. We make them afraid to work, afraid to cooperate, afraid to support their own military. The operation began at dawn, ship time. Alliance strike teams, now trained in human small unit tactics, hit targets throughout. The Vega system. Power stations exploded in carefully planned sequence. Supply convoys vanished into hyperspace, never reaching their destinations. The psychological warfare campaign was even more effective than the physical attacks. Human-designed propaganda broadcasts filled Korthic communication channels. Images of destroyed facilities. Lists of workers who had died in Alliance attacks. Promises that anyone who continued to support the war effort would be hunted down. Within a week, the shipyard had stopped production. Not because it was destroyed, but because the workers were too frightened to come to work. Brilliant, said Veltar as he reviewed the results. We achieved our objective without firing a shot at the actual target. But the real victory came too. Weeks later, at the Battle of Crimson Nebula. A massive Korthic invasion fleet, over 800 ships strong, moved to attack the Alliance stronghold at New Geneva. It should have been an easy victory for the Empire. Fleet Admiral Janet Pierce commanded the Alliance response. She was a stern woman with gray hair and scars from a dozen space battles. Under her command were 300 Alliance ships and 50 human vessels. Remember, Pierce told her captains before the battle, we do not fight their strength. We fight their weakness. The Korthic fleet entered the Crimson Nebula expecting organized resistance. Instead, they found chaos. Alliance. Ships attacked from every direction, ignoring traditional formation fighting. Fast attack craft struck and vanished before the enemy could respond. Heavy cruisers appeared from behind asteroids, fired everything they had, and disappeared again. The Korthic admiral tried to organize his forces, but the Alliance would not stay still long enough to fight a proper battle. Every time he moved to engage one group of ships, another group would attack his flanks or rear. This is not how space battles are fought, the Korthic admiral reportedly said, according to intercepted communications. But it was how humans fought space battles. And the Alliance had learned from the best teachers in the galaxy. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Korthic invasion fleet was scattered across 3 star systems. Half their ships were destroyed or badly damaged. The rest were running for home as fast as their engines could carry them. Alliance losses were minimal. 37 ships damaged, only 12 destroyed. Captain William Thompson, the human cyber warfare specialist, had spent the battle hacking Korthic communication systems. The intelligence he gathered was shocking. They are calling us demons, he reported to Admiral Pierce. The Korthik High Command thinks the Alliance has been replaced by some kind of supernatural force. Good, said Pierce with satisfaction. Fear makes enemies make mistakes. The intercepted communications revealed panic in the Korthik Empire. Military commanders were demanding reinforcements. Civilian leaders were questioning whether the war could be won. Some were even suggesting negotiation. They do not understand. What has changed, explained Jake Morrison as he reviewed the intelligence reports. They know something is different, but they cannot figure out what. What has changed? Asked Veltar. You learned to fight like the universe owes you something, Morrison replied. Like you deserve to win. Like your survival matters more than looking good. The victory at Crimson Nebula changed everything. Alliance worlds that had been preparing for invasion began planning counterattacks. Neutral systems started considering joining the war against the Korthik Empire. Even species that had never fought before began asking how they could help. But perhaps the most important change was in the Alliance soldiers themselves. They moved differently now, talked differently. They had the confidence of people who knew how to win. Commander Veltar stood in the observation deck of the Harmony's Edge, looking out at the victorious fleet. The ships looked the same, but everything else had changed. We are not the same species we were 6 months ago, he said to Jake Morrison. No, Jake agreed. You are something better. You are survivors. In the distance, Korthik distress beacons flickered among the wreckage of their invasion fleet. For the first time in the war, it was the enemy asking for mercy. The Alliance had learned humanity's greatest lesson. Sometimes, to preserve peace, you must be willing to wage war more fiercely than anyone else. The war had turned completely around. What the galaxy now called the Human Alliance Coalition pushed deep into Korthik territory, liberating world after world. The hunters had become the hunted. General Alex Martinez commanded the ground forces, retaking occupied planets. His combined human-alien army moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Fast strikes, overwhelming force, no mercy for those who had shown no mercy. The Korthik Empire rules through fear, Martinez told his officers as they planned the liberation of Kepler Prime. We are going to show them what real fear looks like. The assault on Kepler Prime lasted only 6 hours. Korthik ground forces, expecting traditional alliance tactics, found themselves fighting an enemy that used every dirty trick in the human military handbook. False retreats that led them into ambushes. Artillery strikes on their supply lines. Propaganda broadcasts that turned their own soldiers against each other. Commander Patricia Johnson commanded the Space Forces during the ground assault. Ships no longer fought like the old Alliance Navy. They struck fast and hard, giving the enemy no time to organize or retreat. Enemy fleet trying to escape the system, reported her tactical officer. No escape, Johnson ordered coldly. Hunt them down. All of them. This was the new Alliance way. No survivors to report back. No enemies left to regroup and attack again. The Korthik Empire had taught them this lesson by burning Alliance worlds without mercy. The siege of the Korthik homeworld began 3 months later. The capital planet of the Empire was protected by massive orbital fortresses and a fleet of over 1,000 warships. Traditional military thinking would have called for a direct assault that would cost millions of lives. Colonel Jennifer Murphy had learned better tactics from her human teachers. We do not attack their strength, she explained to the coalition. Fleet commanders, we attack their will to fight. The blockade of the Korthik homeworld was complete. No ships in or out. No supplies. No communication with the rest of the Empire. Captain William Thompson's cyber warfare specialists had shut down every orbital satellite and communication relay. How long can they hold out? Asked Admiral Thorne. Does not matter, replied Murphy. We are not trying to starve them. We are. Trying to make them understand they have already lost. The psychological warfare campaign began immediately. Coalition broadcasts showed the destruction of Korthak forces throughout the galaxy. Planet after planet liberated, fleet after fleet destroyed. The empire that had seemed unstoppable was collapsing everywhere. Surrender now and live, the broadcasts promised. Fight and die like the rest of your empire. Inside the blockade, panic spread through the Korthic homeworld. Military commanders who had spent years conquering other species now faced the reality of their own defeat. The invincible empire was dying, and everyone knew it. Emperor Vashtai, ruler of the Korthak Empire, called his war council together for the final time. The great leader who had ordered the destruction of dozens of worlds now sat in a bunker deep underground, hiding from the forces he had created. How many fleets do we have left? He asked his generals. 47 ships in the home system, replied his naval commander. Perhaps 100 more scattered throughout the empire. And the coalition forces? Over 2,000 ships, growing stronger every day as more species join them. The emperor's armored face showed no emotion, but inside he felt the cold touch of defeat. The humans had taught the Alliance something terrible. They had taught them how to win. What about negotiation? Suggested one of his advisors. Perhaps we can reach some agreement. The answer came from Admiral Jake Morrison himself. The coalition had been broadcasting on all Korthic frequencies for weeks, and the message was always the same. Unconditional surrender. Morrison's voice crackled through their communication system. You will rebuild everything you destroyed, or you will be destroyed. Those are your only choices. The siege lasted 6 months, not because the coalition could not break through the defenses, but because they were waiting for the Korthic Empire to break itself. Every day, more Korthic. Worlds surrendered. Every week, more of their fleets defected or simply stopped fighting. The end came not with a great battle, but with a simple message transmitted from the Imperial Palace. We surrender. The surrender ceremony took place aboard the human flagship, Retribution. Representatives from every coalition species attended, along with the leaders of the human military forces that had made victory possible. Emperor Vashtai entered the meeting room in chains. The once proud ruler of a galactic empire now looked like what he was, a defeated war criminal facing judgment. Admiral Morrison sat at the head of the table. Around him were the Alliance leaders who had learned humanity's lessons about warfare. Commander Veltar, his crystal skin now scarred from battle. Admiral Thorn, whose aquatic eyes had seen too much death. Ambassador Zinn, whose plant-like body bore the marks of worlds that would never grow again. You know why you lost? Morrison asked the fallen emperor. Vashtai said nothing. You lost because you thought being cruel made you strong. But cruelty without purpose is just waste. We humans learned long ago that the point of war is not to be cruel. The point is to win. The surrender terms were harsh but fair. The Korthic Empire would be divided among the coalition species. Korthic military forces would be disbanded. War criminals would face trial. Most importantly, every world the Empire had destroyed would be rebuilt using Korthic resources and labor. This will take centuries, protested one of the Korthic generals. Then you better get started, replied Morrison coldly. The war was over, but the galaxy was forever changed. The Alliance species had learned that sometimes, to preserve peace, you must be willing to wage war more effectively than your enemies. 5 years later, Admiral Morrison walked through the rebuilt city of New Geneva. The Alliance capital had been one of the first worlds liberated from Korthak occupation. Now it was the center of a new galactic government based on human principles. Peace through strength, mercy through victory. Commander Veltar joined him. On the observation deck overlooking the busy spaceport, Ships from hundreds of species came and went in peaceful trade. The universe was quiet in a way it had not been for decades. "Do you ever regret what we became?" Veltar asked. Morrison considered the question. In the distance, he could see Korthik work crews rebuilding the city they had once destroyed. Former conquerors now served as laborers, learning the value of what they had so casually destroyed. "We became what we needed to become," he said finally. "We became survivors. Everything else was luxury we could not afford. And now? Now we can afford to be civilized again. Because everyone knows what happens to species that are not." A galaxy had learned humanity's greatest lesson. War was not about honor or glory or proving who was stronger. War was about making sure that when it was over, the right people were still alive to enjoy the peace dot in the dark spaces between stars. Other empires that might have considered expansion now thought carefully before acting. Somewhere in the galaxy were humans, and humans knew things about warfare that no one wanted to learn the hard way. The Alliance had not become human, but they had learned humanity's wisdom, that sometimes the only way to protect civilization is to be willing to abandon it long enough to destroy those who would end it forever. Peace reigned in the galaxy, not because everyone was good, but because everyone knew the price of being evil. And that, the humans had taught them, was the only kind of peace that lasted.